Have a seat. Well, hi, everybody. That was a nice little opening. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Well, I first met Eddie in 2009, and it was when I interviewed him for CNN. It was at his 5150 studio, and he was rolling out a new guitar for his EVH line with Fender. And I have to say that you guys are really in for a treat tonight. You're going to get a chance to hear his story and also find out a little bit of what makes him tick. And at the end of the night, I'm sure you're going to want him to be your best friend. Maybe not. Well, this is a nice, intimate crowd. You're usually used to arenas.
It's about as far as you can see in an arena.
Well, let's head into the program. The theme of tonight is rock and roll and reinvention, coupled with what it's like to be an American. And this is kind of your story, truly.
Yeah, I'd have to say so. Let me start off by saying that my father was a professional musician, classically trained on clarinet and saxophone, and he traveled the world making music, and he met my mother in Indonesia. And after the war, Indonesia used to be a Dutch province, and after the war, they had a choice to either remain under their rule or move back to Holland. And they opted to move back to Holland, where life became a little rough because my mom became a second-class citizen because she was Indonesian. So here she is stuck at home with two rugrats, Alex and I, and my father's out trying to get gigs, which kept him from home for weeks at a time. Eventually, with the big band era and everything coming kind of to a close, in order to make money to have any kind of gig at all, he joined the Air Force in Holland to pay the rent. And somewhere along the line, when he turned 42, he said to my mom, "Let's pack up the kids and the piano and move to Beverly." Except it wasn't Beverly Hills, that is. We came to America on a boat, 9 days on the boat, and he performed on the boat with the band, and that was our ticket over here. And one day he comes up to Alex and I, and he goes, "Why don't you guys play piano during the intermission?" So we ended up performing also on the boat, which showed us the quirks of being a performer, or the pluses of it, because the next night we're at the captain's table eating dinner. So we found out at an early age, what being on stage meant, to a certain extent. But anyway, so when we finally arrived in Pasadena, California, it was rough. My father, a classically trained musician, had to walk 3 miles to go wash dishes. He was a janitor at Masonic Temple and Pacific Telephone. My mom was a maid. And there was always a common thread of music in our family. Ever since we were young in Holland, there was, somewhere my mom had a sense that we were going to follow in my father's footsteps, and knowing that in the back of her head, she insisted that we start being classically trained on piano already in Holland. That's why we brought the piano with us. But anyway, so we come to America, and my mom being a maid, and my dad being basically a janitor, and the thing just cut out.
It's back.
And he didn't know any other musicians, really. And, Musicians Union was there, but they weren't of much help at the time. But slowly he started meeting other musicians, also, immigrants. And he started gigging on the weekends because being a janitor and a maid and all that stuff, it didn't pay the rent. And we lived in one room, we slept in one bed, in a house with 2 other families. So it was rough going. So the only thing, again, what saved us was my dad gigging on the weekends, making music. as we grew a little bit older, Alex started playing drums with my dad. And I'll never forget, he used to have to, because he had long hair, he had to take a whole jar of Vaseline and what was that stuff called? Vitalis? And just slick his hair back, and it took him days to get it out. But, and then eventually I ended up playing bass with them. And I didn't know my A from Hole in the Ground. These funny songs, like we're playing oompa music, everything from oompa music to waltzes to weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it. And Al would yell to me which chord to play. He's going 1, 4, 5. No, you fucked up. But
does he still do that?
Bleep that out. I don't listen anymore. No. Anyway, so music was just a common thread throughout our lives. We were born in Holland. Music in the house. We used to stomp around the living room table with pots and pans and marching around to listening to big band and marching music. And we always liked things loud. Everything had to be loud, But as we got older, we continued to take piano lessons, and my mom had put us in these contests, these annual contests. So you practice one piece of music all year long, and I'm going way off the subject here.
No, this is fascinating.
Anyway, you practice one piece of music all year, and the funny thing is, I never learned how to read music. And I fooled the teacher. I was just blessed with good ears. I'd watch his fingers and emulate what he did. He didn't find out till much later that I couldn't read. He actually found out one time when he was playing a new piece of music, and he asked me to turn the page for him. And I'm sitting going. He goes, "What's the matter? You're supposed to turn the page." And I'm going, "What? I can't read." He's going, "What?" This was after like 5 years of lessons with the guy, and he finally found out, which he wasn't too happy about. But the funny thing is, these piano contests that they put us into, you're not even allowed to read. Okay, you can't use sheet music, so it was actually a blessing in disguise for me to not be able to read. I could not look up and do things at the same time. I had to see what my fingers were doing. But these piano contests, actually, both Alex and I won 3 years in a row. I think I won first prize 3 years in a row, and Al won first prize, second prize, or whatever. But we always won, and it's kind of like in phases where you go in and you play, and then you wait an hour to see if your name gets whittled down. I had no idea. It was like 5,000 kids. Okay, then it'll go down to 2,000, and you see if your name is still on the list. And then we'll go down to 100 people, and then 10, and then 5. And we're going, Alex and I were both going, "Come on, let's just go home. We're not going to make it, And my dad was always one who said, no, wait, check it out. And well, there it was. We were in the top 5. And then we ended up winning, which was great. But that was the piano phase. So that was 9, 10, 11 years old that I did those contests. And then we discovered the Beatles and Dave Clark 5, and of course, like any kid, we wanted to rock and roll. And I quit piano lessons and the contest circuit, so to speak, and said, I want to get myself a drum kit because I like the song "Glad All Over" boom, 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 by Dave Clark 5, and I wanted to play drums, so I got a paper out, bought a St. George drum kit for $125. And my mom somehow had convinced my brother to still do something musically respectable, which is take flamenco guitar lessons. Now, forgive me if my memory or recollection is different from yours, Hal. But all I remember is me going out and throwing the papers and coming home, and he's playing my drums. And I'm going, okay, it PO'd me a bit in the beginning, And then finally I just said, okay, he's just better than I am. So I never wanted to play guitar, but I said, okay, go ahead, take my drums, I'll play your damn guitar. And the funny thing is, when I watched Alex play, he'll probably say the exact opposite, or the same thing, except to me, and that is that to watch Al play drums was like, he wasn't just keeping time, he was making music on the drums. It just came so natural to him, whereas he'll probably say the guitar was just so easy for me. And we're both right. We ended up on the, it was destiny.
It does seem like the
simple?
universe has a way of shaking out the way it's supposed to, doesn't it? Now, you didn't take formal guitar lessons in the same way
No.
that you took piano lessons.
No. I just, instead of reading a book, I wrote my own, so to speak. I'd say that 90% of the things that I do on guitar, if I had taken lessons and learned by the book, I would not play it all the way I do. As a matter of fact, because of the things that I created technique-wise and whatever the way I play, they had to reinvent a whole new way to write music. Because they could not explain with regular notes what I was doing with this hand. So they had to create a whole new thing called tablature.
With symbols and things?
Yeah, with symbols and numbers and what fingers where and blah, blah, blah. And the funny thing is, I can't read music. Now they come up with a new way to write it. And I can't make sense out of that at all. So I don't have a clue if it's right or wrong.
Well, can we flash back all the way to 1978? That's when Van Halen's self-titled debut album hit the stores. And it really kind of turned the music industry on its head. Do you guys agree? There were sounds that he was making with his guitar that nobody had ever heard before.
The sounds on that record were a lot of years of experimentation and tearing apart guitars and opening up amplifiers and getting electrocuted and thrown across the, kicked around and it was a lot of. By the time the first record came out, we had worked so hard to make that record to get to that point. Because don't forget, being a rock and roll band in 1977, 78, it's kind of what it's like today. Except back then it was punk and disco that was, dominating the charts. There was no rock and roll to be heard of. So for us to succeed in that, amongst or in the middle of that, and anyway, but the sounds. Let me start by saying, I was never happy. I guess what drives me to tear things apart is some of it is necessity and some of it is just experimenting, because I'm always pushing things past where they're supposed to be. It's, I hate to bring up Spinal Tap, but while they're going to 11 at the time, I was already going to 15. I was already way past that. But so anyway, what I really loved about a Fender guitar was the vibrato bar, except they only came with single coil pickups, which at high volume they squeal and they're very thin sounding unless you use some kind of distortion pedal or whatever, which I could not afford. And there's the other company, Gibson, that made a Les Paul. Les Paul was a dear friend of mine also, which made humbucking pickups, which were similar to these. They canceled the hum, and it has a much fatter sound. So I proceeded to find a company that made knockoff bodies and necks of Fenders, a company called Boogie Bodies. And I went out there and said, how much for a body? He goes, oh, you don't want one of those. I go, why not? The guy goes, they're seconds. I'm going, I thought he meant those are next to be made. No, what he meant was those are junk. we, we can't sell those because they have knots and, you know, they're damaged. I said, great, I'll take one. So, so I bought a $50 body and $75 neck, and I proceeded to take a chisel and a hammer and make a hole big enough for a Gibson pickup to put in there. And of course, that pickup had to come out of a guitar somewhere. So I ruined that guitar by ripping the pickup out, but I knew I was on to something. So I screwed the pickup straight into the wood, and a Stratocaster actually has 3 pickups, and so I routed out the body and crammed the humbucking pickup, and mind you, everything was unsoldered and just laying there. It had 3 knobs and 2 pickups over here, and I had 1 pickup that I wanted in there, and I go, okay, now how am I going to hook this back up? I had no clue how to hook it back up, so I wondered if it would work if I just hooked the humbucking pickup straight up to 1 knob, and it worked. So I just ripped everything out, threw it away, and made my own pick guard to cover the holes, and that's what ended up being that guitar.
With all your experimentation, was there ever anything that didn't work? Like, do you have a whole graveyard full of instruments that...
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I've destroyed many actual vintage guitars, taking just choice pieces out that I wanted for this and that. But so then finally, okay, then I had the guitar built, and I guess one of the most often asked questions is what prompted the paint job. That I have no answer for, except that I'm sitting there with a blank piece of wood with a guitar that sounded great and did everything I wanted, and I painted it black, and I'm going, this looks kind of boring, and there's some tape laying there, and I just started taping it up, take a razor blade and just cut pieces out and spray painted it white, and then took it all off, and I'm going, hey, this is kind of cool. And it was really as simple as that. There was no, I have to make a piece of art, you know, even though it's interesting looking. And then later on, the red guitar is the same guitar as the white one. I taped over it again and spray painted it red. But
and that led to a lot of people kind of copying, you know, the graphic design.
It became standard in the industry. All of a sudden, everybody was making a humbucking in a Strat style body. But there's so many other things that I did, like potting the pickup, which, okay, if you get unwanted high squeal feedback, you know, like if you ever watch a public speaker and you get this real annoying, you know, I'm not talking about the good kind of feedback when you're playing. I'm talking about annoying high squeal. Now, I have no idea what prompted me to think this, but I was thinking, okay, coil windings, very thin copper wire around these plastic things with a magnet. And I'm going, maybe it's the little coil things vibrating. So I proceeded to empty one of my mom's U-Man coffee cans and went to the store and bought some paraffin wax and got a hot plate, and again proceeded to ruin many pickups because I forgot that the pickup bobbins, you know, the black and white part that you see there, that they're plastic. So, and I didn't know what temperature to dip them at, so I melted a lot of pickups, and then I figured, okay, I'll just hold on to it, and as soon as I see an inkling of shrivel, I'm going to yank it out, and it worked.
And people still use that technique.
That became a standard in the business now, too. Every company does that.
It's like all this stuff that comes out of your mad scientist brain.
Or is given to me from somewhere, I don't know. You know, say the crossing a Gibson with a Fender was a conscious, you know, out of necessity, because there was no guitar on the market that did what I wanted. So that was a necessity. The paint job was not a necessity. Potting the pickup, I have no idea what made me think that. So then I had a guitar, and I used to work at a music store delivering pianos and organs, and one day a Marshall amp comes in. And I've only seen pictures of these things, you know. Only Eric Clapton, gods play these, you know, not kids on the street. And I said, I got to have that amp. So I worked all summer to buy that amp, and we were already too loud, as it were. Okay?
I'm sure your neighbors loved you.
Now I have a 100-watt Marshall that was so damn loud that I did everything from face it backwards to leave it face down, you name it. And then we'd be auditioning in clubs, and your guitarist is too psychedelic, too loud, and too much uncontrolled energy, and blah, 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 all this stuff because I was just too damn loud. Okay? I saw an ad in the paper for another Marshall head, and I'm going, well, maybe this one will be different. And well, it certainly was, because when it showed up and I plugged it in, it didn't work. But I left it on, okay? What I didn't realize was that this thing was from England, and it was 220 volts. So I plugged it into the wall, and it was set. I didn't bother to look in the back until later, but it was set on 220. So it took a long time for it to warm up at half voltage. And when I picked up my guitar, I'm going, it sounds incredible, but incredibly quiet. It was so quiet, only my dog and I could hear it. And then it dawned on me. I'm going to say, wait a minute, the voltage. Okay, I can control the level of the amp output by voltage. So I proceeded to try to hook it onto the light dimmer at the house and blew the power out and so on and so on. So finally I went to this place called Dow Radio in Pasadena on Colorado Boulevard and asked, do you guys make any kind of industrial variable transformer, like a huge light dimmer, And they said, yeah, we got this thing called a Variac. And I said, okay, cool. So I take it home and I plug the amp head into it. So, and I would lower the voltage from 110 slowly down to 100, and the lowest I ever really went was like 60. Depending on the size room you're playing, I'd set it anywhere between 60 and 100. And that became, because the only way the amp sounded good was with everything all the way up. And if it was running at 110 volts, it was just so damn loud, So that became my volume knob. Like when we used to play guitars, I'd have down to 60 volts. If we played somewhere a little bit bigger, I'd crank it to 80. And for recording, the sweet spot seemed to be 89 volts.
There seems to be, though, a recurring theme in that you're always pushing. You always want to see what is beyond what everybody else is doing. More power, more volume.
Yes. More is always better, right? It's like what's the old saying Alex and I always had: if it's all you can eat for $1, give me $3 worth. But to me, it's just a natural evolution. I'm always tinkering with things. The main thing I always ask myself is, what if I do this? I wonder what will happen if I do this. And a lot of times, open up an amp and accidentally hit a capacitor and went, like Mike Tyson, kicked you in the chest. And but through trial and error, I continue to fuss around with stuff.
And it also goes with your playing technique, too, because you're known for playing with both your right hand and your left hand on the fretboard.
Yeah, which brings me to, I can
you
I can demonstrate?
Well, whoops. There goes the earpiece. But it's worth it if we get the guitar in his lap.
There it is. Got
Maybe,
it.
yeah.
Is it working? Yeah, good. Okay, let's see if I can do that again.
I didn't know this was going to be a striptease in
addition. Is it hooked onto my jacket? Got it.
More power.
Okay, so, a lot of people, before the internet, nobody could search things and whatever, but, lately everybody's going, oh, Eddie Van Halen didn't invent tapping and pull hammer-ons and pull-offs and this and that. And I never claimed that I did, but I do know how and when I figured out how to do it, and on top of that, I never really heard anybody do with it what I did, which is actual pieces of music. But I'll never forget, Alex and I used to go to every concert at the Forum in L.A., and Led Zeppelin's playing, and Jimmy Page is going like this. He's going. Okay, so he's got his hand up in the air, and I'm going. So basically, I just moved the nut. Okay, this part right here is the nut. But then, I instead of using this hand, I use this hand. So, like right now, if I go like this, you can't tell which finger I'm using. This hand or that hand. You tell me, right hand or left hand? I'm using both, okay? So, no, so my point being is it's basically this finger, or these two, or however many you want to use, is just an extension of this hand. Okay, so if I'm playing an A, then, figuring that out, then I started actually making little pieces, like Eruption. So that's the tapping, or I don't even know what they call the stuff. I didn't call it anything. It was just part of my playing. But then came stuff like the intro to a song called Mean Streets, where I'm going like this. And then harmonically doing so it was just harmonics by tapping. Just stuff like that. And people ask me, where are these harmonics? Well, they're everywhere. If you just go like this. You can kind of hear them pinging out. They're like. And if you know where they are after a while, you can do this stuff. Or, see, I don't have the right effects, but it doesn't sound right. And, being the only melodic instrument in a three-piece band, actually before that, it was just basically Alex and I. So we both just filled every hole possible. If there was a hole, we filled it, and it's. But the main reason why I squeezed so many, you call them tricks, call them whatever, techniques out of a guitar, was out of necessity, because I couldn't afford the pedals. I couldn't afford a wah-wah pedal. I couldn't afford a fuzz box and all the toys that everybody else had. So I did everything I could to get sounds out of the guitar with my fingers.
Kind of necessity leads to innovation.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Who were some of your musical heroes?
Well, my father, to begin with. You know, we were surrounded by music from day one. And he lived long enough to see our success. As a guitarist, Eric Clapton was my hero because he was a straight-ahead guy, just plugged his guitar straight into an amp. And, you know, it was very organic, so to speak. There wasn't a lot of BS in between. So, yeah, I liked him during Cream. After Cream, I kind of lost interest in him and basically stopped listening to music altogether. I didn't listen to much of any after that.
Why is that?
I was so busy and wrapped up in my own little world that I just didn't. You can ask Alex, you know, or my son. You know, what's the last record I bought? Peter Gabriel's So. And the record before that, I don't have a clue. You know, I'm just not one. I don't listen to the radio.
It was probably an 8-track.
Huh?
It was probably an 8-track.
A cassette. But yeah, I never listened to the radio in my car, so I like to hear the engine of the car.
This is a man who, you know, enjoys sounds, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably what
Actually,
kind of...
one of my cars is on the recording too. The breakdown in Panama, where he goes, "Oh, I'm a little hot tonight." It's one of my cars.
Did you all know that? Or is that a new one?
A 1972 Miura S Lamborghini, which I still have today.
Now you talk about Clapton being an early influence of yours, but I think you also were listening to Jimi Hendrix.
Not so much, actually.
No?
No.
Jimmy Page?
You
Any
know,
of those guys?
it's like unless no, not really. Unless there were songs that Alex or bass player at the time, Mark Stone, would come in with an album and say, "Hey, you want to learn this song by this band?" I wouldn't. I usually wasn't the one to pick the songs we played.
It's interesting because all of those iconic guitarists, they all played off-the-rack guitars. You're the only one who said, "That's not good enough for me."
Well, obviously it was good enough for them, but it wasn't for me. You know, doesn't mean anything except that, really.
Well, the sounds that you were making and with Van Halen really kind of changing the musical landscape, it really kind of inspired a whole era of copycats.
Yeah, which at first, you know, I kind of went, you know, at first it kind of pissed me off. Then I started thinking, oh God, what did I start? You know, but then, you know, my brother and my father both told me, hey, you know, imitation is the biggest form of flattery. So I just let it go at that, you know. Because with me, it was just the way I played, you know. It wasn't like I was copying anyone.
But I think at that time, people, you know, all the record labels were looking for their own version of Van Halen, you know, with a guitar god and
Right.
copying your hair, the way you dress, even your stage presence.
I'm not a record company exec. I don't know how they think.
In fact, didn't your own record label try to get a band that sounded like Van Halen too?
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Yeah. Well, you've had 3 different singers
Yeah.
in Van Halen. Does it change the way you write music to work with these different singers?
I think it's a natural progression. I don't think it definitely wasn't difficult for us because it starts with the music all the time anyway. So if anything, it was more of them having to adapt to us than us adapting to them.
But I think you would think that they would have different likes and different musical capabilities as well.
No, it's more like you sing this or you're not in. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking,
Well,
there's always a certain amount of friction in a band. If you have four members and they all like the identical thing, you're going to have no versatility. You know what I mean? It's like I listened to more progressive music when I did. Alex liked straight ahead rock and roll. Dave was into disco. And no, for real. And together, it made a soup. And what came out of it, it didn't really affect the music, but harmony-wise, song structure, things like that, there were a lot of elements of a lot of things that we all grew up on.
Well, what it kind of amounted to, I think, for a lot of us in this room, is that Van Halen really was the soundtrack for an entire generation. How do you feel about that? Two thumbs up.
Well, I mean, it's an honor, I mean, very few bands are as lucky as we have to still have an audience, after pushing 40 years.
Rock and roll in recent years has kind of taken a backseat to pop, to hip hop. Do you think it can make a comeback?
I think it has gone away, come back so many times. I would bet anything that it's coming back.
Do you think?
I mean, don't forget, we got signed in the middle of punk and disco. They laughed at us. What are these guys doing, playing rock and roll? Let's get down tonight, man. KC and the Sunshine Band.
Which you used to play, right? When you were doing covers?
It sounded like Black Sabbath when we did it. That's another thing, in the club days, we had to play top 40 to get to gigs, and it was impossible for me to emulate these records. I could not make, for the life of me, I tried so hard to make the songs we had to play, to make them sound like the record. But it was also a blessing in disguise, because all I could do was me. No matter what I played, it sounded like me. And that's why whenever you hear Van Halen, it's Van Halen, because that's all we can do. You hear Alex's drums, it's his drums, It's just the nature of the beast, Otherwise, we probably would have become studio musicians.
Well, you recently celebrated your 60th birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I feel like a 60-year-old punk kid who plays guitar in a rock and roll band, and I'm so blessed and so honored to be able to do that, making music with my son and my brother.
It's really kind of Van Halen legacy building. I mean, you're building a third generation of Van Halen musicians. Oh. Wolfie joined the band in 2006.
Wait till you hear his record.
When is that coming out?
Pardon?
When is that coming out?
Oh, they just started it. Probably end of the year. But this is not pop talking. This is real talk. It blew my mind.
Looking forward to hearing that.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing the rock back, Wolfie? Well, you guys all met Alex and Wolfie here, sitting in the audience. What advice did your father give you that you wanted to make sure Wolfie knew?
Things he always used to say to us was you can learn from everybody what to do and what not to do. Mostly watch people for what not to do. And if you make a mistake, try to do it twice and smile. Because that way people will think you meant it. His Dutch terminology would be gewoon doorfietsen. Just means just keep pedaling, and smile.
Can we talk about Les Paul for a minute?
Oh yeah, very dear friend of mine.
A lot of people are saying you're the heir to the torch he carried for half a century. I mean, you both write, play, you both innovate. A lot of kindred spiritness there.
A lot of funny stories. I mean, I'd known him for years, and he lived in New York, so East Coast, and he'd call me up, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going, hello? He's going, Eddie, it's Les. I'm going, all right. I'm going, oh, hi, Les. That's right, it's 3 o'clock. No. But we'd pick each other's brain, about, so what are you tinkering around with now? And I remember one of our conversations, I said, well, I'm having such a problem finding the right pick. I can't hold on to the damn thing. So I took some crazy glue and cut out some sandpaper and crazy glued it to the pick so I could hold on to it. He's going, you got to be kidding. That's what I'm doing right now. And that's for real. That's for real.
Yeah.
It's like we were definitely connected in a strange way. And he would always end the conversation by, you know something, Eddie? You, me, Leo Fender, we're the only ones that know how to build a guitar. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I'm so glad that my son had the opportunity to meet him on the 07 tour, on the 07 tour in backstage in New York. And remember, he asked me about the tapping thing, and I almost got him to do it, because he said, show me how you do that tapping stuff. And I said, okay, here. And then at the last minute, we either had to go on or something, or he backed out and said, nah, I better not, But that was a moment to capture, or a moment to remember.
Do you feel as though you're living the American dream?
Oh, come on. Coming here with approximately $50 and a piano, not being able to speak the language, going through everything to get to where we are. If that's not an American dream, I don't know what is.
Your father passed away in 1986, so he got to see the success that you had.
Yes, he did get to see it. He used to sit on my side of the stage next to the monitor guy, and you could just see him just boogieing and, smiling and teary-eyed smiling. He was just so happy he was crying. So yeah, he got to see the success that he didn't have. Which indirectly he did get.
Well, he's the one who had the name Van Halen.
Obviously, he was. Without him, we wouldn't have been. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure. No, I'm sure he was incredibly proud.
I mean, really, only in America is it still possible. It's all about freedom, and you put your nose and tail to it, and if you have anything that you want to do, I really still think that if you just don't stop, Well,
those are great words to kind of think about as we leave here. But in the meantime, we have some questions from the audience.
Keith, there we go. Thank you. We do have some questions from the audience. We left some time aside for all of you guys. There are 2 of us with microphones. They'll approach the people with the questions. I want to say that please say your first and last name before your question. This is being recorded. It'll be up on the whatitmeanstobeamerican.org website first thing tomorrow morning. You can share with friends, family, colleagues, and other amazing fans who could not make it tonight. Danielle's got the first question on the left.
Hello, Ed, over here. My name is John Lambden.
Hey, nice shirt.
Hey, great album. By the way, thank you for being the musical oasis for almost everyone in here. Your debut album was released 37 years ago this week.
Sorry.
Actually, it was 2 days ago. When you finished recording it, what was your personal feelings of how it would be received based on the musical landscape of that time?
Like I said earlier, we were you know, rock and roll was not at the forefront at all on the charts or anything. So we didn't have a clue, really. But what got us to getting a record deal is the same thing that made that record succeed, which is we just played everywhere nonstop. We were on the road for 11 months supporting that record. We did 23 gigs in 25 days in England alone. And then we came home after 11 months of touring, and Warner Brothers goes, "You owe us $3 million and a new album." And we went, "How does that work?" Anyway, I won't get into that. But the bottom line is we believed in ourselves, and we wouldn't take no for an answer. Just like when no record company wanted anything to do with us, we threw our own gigs. We played backyard parties. We printed our own flyers and went to stuffed lockers at high schools. We played everywhere. Whether you liked us or not, you definitely had heard of us, you know? And we would not let you get away without at least giving, hearing us. And slowly we built an audience of about 3,000 to 5,000 people every time we played the Pasadena Convention Center in Pasadena, obviously. And Warner Brothers eventually came to us because they said, wow, if they can do it here, they can do it anywhere. And that's how it all happened.
Next question on your right.
Hi, Eddie. My name is Jeff Polinsky from Buffalo, New York. You've been a huge influence on me for over 30 years, and I was just wondering how your son, Wolfgang, has influenced you and inspired you since he has started playing.
Oh, man. It's like, talk about fresh blood, and I don't even know how to put that into words. It's like, I mean, for one, what father wouldn't want to play with his son, especially one who's as talented as he is? I mean, he just fit in like a glove. I mean, ask Alex. He just, I don't know. It just breathed a breath of fresh air into my life. I was actually going through a pretty rough time when he joined the band. I was still drinking at the time, and I got sober during that first tour, and I was so nervous. And every time I looked at my son, I'm going, okay, if my 16-year-old son can be kicking ass like that, I better suck it up here, you know? So look, you know, he gave me the strength to be able to do that. And here we are, you know.
Next question on your left.
Edward Van Halen. I'm too from Buffalo, New York, Dave Dahm, and I don't know that guy. Funny enough, I swear to God. Anyways, so just want to say one thing before my question. I have to say this to you. I have scenarioed this in my mind for 35 years, what I would say to you, and I just want to say thank you, man, from the bottom of my heart.
You're very welcome.
All right. My question is, of all the deceased musicians out there that are no longer around, could you pick one to play with? Who would that be?
Wow. I'd love to jam with my father again.
Next question to your right.
Hello, my name is Cole Ratliff, and my question for you was, when you first came to America, what was your first day of school like?
When you first came to America, what was your first day of school like?
Oh, it was absolutely frightening. Because, you know, we already went through that in Holland, first day, first grade. Now you're in a whole country where you can't speak the language, and you know absolutely nothing about anything. And yeah, it was beyond frightening. I don't even know how to explain. But, you know, I think it made us stronger because you had to. I mean, the school that we went to was still segregated at the time, believe it or not. And since we couldn't speak the language, we were considered a minority. And my first friends in America were black. Their names were Stephen and Russell. And we became fast friends because I could outrun them. But, it was actually the white people that were the bullies. They would tear up my homework papers, make me eat playground sand and all these things, and the black kids stuck up for me. So, it's
Next question on your left.
Hello, Eddie. My name is Kyle Lambden.
Hi,
That's
Kyle.
my dad. And I just want to say thank you for keep rocking it. And my question is, as the years go by, how do you still keep your creative spark?
By continuing to play, really, and having Wolfgang in a band, and it's something that if you're a musician, you just play until the day you die. It's not like I can't wait to turn 65 and retire. It's not that kind of. It's not. It's not an ordinary job. It can be work. Sometimes it's like what's the saying? It's you play music, you don't work it, but at times it can be hard work to be able to play it.
Good question.
Question to your right.
Hi, Eddie. Robert Drake.
Hello.
Hello. This question is along the lines of musical reinvention. If you were to begin your career all over again from the beginning, but with a different instrument, what instrument would you choose?
I would pick drums. And the same thing would probably happen. So here we go, Groundhog's Day. No. Yeah, I would probably go for drums, and Alex would play guitar, and then we'd swap. A little bit, yeah. Between Wolfgang and Alex, I can't keep up with these two guys. They are both insane drummers. Pardon? No, they don't need to worry about anything.
We have time for one more question. I want to invite all of you to join us in our reception, which will be in the lobby. There are wine, drinks, soft drinks, whatever you fancy. There's some food out there as well. Both of our guests tonight will be out there in the reception as well. So please do stay behind and join us. I want to take a second to thank, on behalf of Socolow Public Square, which is who I work for, we want to thank the National Museum of American History for hosting us and for creating this project with us, What It Means to Be American. And of course, our panelists tonight. Danielle's got the last question on the left.
Eddie, my name's Doug Thomas.
Hi.
As everyone says, thank you. The question I have is, if you were unknown and 20 years old and had the talent you do, how would you start in the music business today, since it's so different than it was?
It is, but it isn't. Like I've said earlier, nobody wanted anything to do with Van Halen. For a good 7 years, we knocked on everybody's door. We made demo tapes, and everybody just said no. So what we did was we started playing backyard parties and taking it straight to the people. Like I told you, we stuffed lockers full of, we go to Postal Instant Press, put a picture on it, and where the gig is and how many kegs of beer there will be that night, and that kind of thing. And we just humped it and humped it and humped it until people came. And I don't see why that wouldn't work today. We brought it straight to the people, playing live. Whether there's Pro Tools and whatever music is out there, there's always room for more. You know what I mean?
With that, we'll see you outside. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.